West Ham United come off of the back of a 4-1 victory over Ghent midweek to come into a game. There's a massive game down on the south coast against Bournemouth on Sunday. Will the European hangover come back into effect, or can West Ham try and pick something up down on the south coast? Welcome back to West Ham Official opposition preview for Bournemouth versus West Ham. Tom is joining me from the Back of the Net YouTube channel. Tom, thanks for joining me, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Thanks for having me. Yeah, looking forward to this one. Should be a really good game.
Yeah, obviously, as we mentioned before, we got going both sides with a bit of confidence going into this one. You lot beating Spurs last weekend, which is always a good sight for anyone to see.
Yeah, no, exactly, mate. It was, yeah, I can imagine it was. You don't want us to get points at the moment, but if we're going to beat anyone, at least it was Spurs for you. So, yeah, we probably played them at a decent time, and then, as you say, you played in Belgium last week, but still come out really well against Arsenal after a tough start. So, yeah, both teams should be a little bit more confident now. Bit of breathing space on the bottom three. So, yeah, be a really interesting game, mate.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Bournemouth because I've sort of, I always try and follow what Bournemouth do because we live quite near you boys down there, and I've always had a slight soft spot for Bournemouth, and I think the issue with it is obviously Parker's gone. That's the rest of it, and you brought in Gary O'Neill now. If you do stay up, do you think he's the option to go with going into next season?
I think if we stay up, he's given himself a good opportunity, and I think he'll be given a chance to have a crack at it for sure, and he deserves that if he keeps us up, because that would have been his job role. Make sure we stay in the league. So if he ticks that off, then he deserves the opportunity. I think it still remains to be seen. It's his first job. So it's still difficult to judge. I think what I will say is when we've brought in new players in January and the squad looks good, we're starting to see results now. So after the last few weeks, we're now quietly confident we should be okay, but still a long way to go. And we got yourselves, then Southampton, then Leeds. So big games. And if we come out of them okay, then we should be all right. And the remit will be done from his perspective.
Yeah, the one thing that you always try and put across when you're in these relegation battles is that if you get anything against the big sides, it's a bonus as long as you pick up the points against the sides around you. And you've had those wins against Liverpool and Spurs that have been probably, you'd say, bonus points to take out of it. But as you said, if you've got Southampton, Leeds in games to come, that's some massive games that could swing it back or forth. It's by far done. You could probably, I mean, to be fair, I know you probably like to hear, but you can probably eliminate Southampton out of it. I think they're gone, but it's still 2 positions there left to go, and I think it's still going to ebb and flow. It's very tight down there.
Yeah, I do think it's going to go right to the wire. As you say, like to think, Southampton will hopefully be done soon enough. It'll be lovely if we can virtually be the team to do that. But they're big for us because bonus points, as you say. And we've got these 3 games coming up, and we lost all the return fixtures. Obviously, lost at your place. We lost to Southampton early on the season, and we lost at Leeds. So we know that as much as on paper these look better, that we have struggled in these sort of games when you've got to kind of unlock a team. Whereas when we've played Liverpool, Tottenham and teams like that, we're probably a little bit better on the counter-attack because they open up and we've got some pace. And I'm not sure if these teams will allow us to have as much room on the break. So we'll have to be a little bit cleverer, I think, in these games, starting with you guys. So yeah, we struggled at your place. So hopefully we can sort it out. I think it's only Leicester that we've managed to do the double on. So we have struggled at times with teams around us. So hopefully that can change from our perspective anyway.
What have you made of West Ham this season? Because there's been plenty of publicity about how it's all gone wrong, and our opinions massively differ from the people on the telly. But what have you made as a whole of West Ham, of what you've seen?
Yeah, it is a difficult one because, I see what West Ham fans are saying, and I can always see both sides, really. I think I understand that there's people that's going to say how much credit in the bank David Moyes has got and what a great season you had last season, and you're in Europe and you're trying to juggle things. But equally, the squad's a lot better. The squad's too strong to be where it is. And yes, you've got to say thank you to Moyes and what he's done. But if you're staring down relegation with the squad you've got, then questions have got to be asked. So I do appreciate that for sure. I do wonder sometimes, obviously we all know with the Man U job that he had, and I do wonder sometimes if he's better with kind of them sort of players that have got a ceiling, he get the best out of them. But then when he's got kind of high quality players with maybe a bit more ego and expect to do stuff, if he struggles to manage them as well. I mean, people like Paqueta and Scamacca and these sort of players, you shouldn't be where you are. And I don't think he gets the best out of them sometimes. I do think he's a good coach, but equally, it depends what West Ham want to do. Depends what direction you want to go in, and I do think you'll have enough to stay up, and you've got a good chance in Europe for sure. But I don't think it will be long. You could look at, say, Christmas time, and there might be a change. I wouldn't be shocked if you don't start well next season, say. So yeah, I kind of see both sides of it, but I do think you'll have enough. And the problem for the people that maybe are not too keen of keeping Moyes will be, well, if you go and win in Europe and stay up, he'll go, what do you want me to do? So
Yeah.
it's going to be difficult. But I think from the board's perspective, you're spending this money on these top players, maybe a high caliber manager soon, I would have thought.
Yeah, that's the sort of conundrum we've got now, because it was excellent last night. We put Ghent to the side in the end, but that's the sort of issue we've got now. Because if you ask 99% of West Ham fans, would you want Moyes gone this summer? I'd be confident in 99% saying yes. And if we do win it and we do stay up, then the board will go, well, he's done his job, hasn't he? You stayed in the league. We've won a trophy for the first time in 43 years. What on earth do you expect him to do? That's the issue we've got there. And you're bang on about the players there. We've got some very, very good players there. And Moyes just hasn't got a Scooby. He hasn't got a clue how to handle the Paquetas and to get the best out of these players. We've signed Danny Ings, who is a striker that plays in a 2-man front line. He's played a 1-man attacking line in his, in the majority of games he's played in. It's just these little things that we can all pick at, and everyone else can see, but apart from Moyes. But in the reverse fixture, as you mentioned a little bit earlier on,
it was my birthday.
VAR headlines. I don't want to talk about it too much. VAR headlines, and to be honest, I did expect more to come at you, and I do think at home you will pose a bigger threat than you did on that night.
I'd like to think so, mate. It was a weird one. It was my birthday as well, so it wasn't a nice night. Yeah, it was that weird VAR call with the kind of volleyball or whatever. We couldn't work it out. But to be fair, we weren't very good on the night anyway. Take that aside, and you were the better side. You didn't have to do too much, I didn't think, to beat us. We weren't in a good place then. We have picked up lately. It's probably not a great time to play us in that sense, but then equally your form's picked up a little bit, so yeah, two teams that are doing well considering where we are. But yeah, we've got to perform better, and I would have thought so. We got quite, I'd like to see the 11 from that day, but I think a lot will be different. Had a few knocks, and then we've got a lot of players in January, so yeah, I would have thought it'd be different. I think my concern always playing West Ham is that, as we just mentioned with Moyes there, that yeah, he probably doesn't let them off the leash and play good attacking football as much as the players that you've got should allow you to do. But you can be quite stubborn sometimes, and quite difficult to break down. And whereas recently with like Tottenham, you can get them on the break. So I think first goal will be key here, and then who can hang on. But my concern really, but there's always been good games with us two, especially at our place. It's been goals.
Plenty of them.
Yeah, my concern would be, would both teams kind of take a point? And I think they might. Because a point would, in the positions we're in, a point for you away from home at this stage of the season is a good one. And from our perspective, you're not gaining any ground, and it's another point towards safety. So I wonder if that might mean both teams will play with a handbrake a little bit and kind of be scared to lose. That's my only concern. But I do think it'll be a tight game regardless, mate.
Yeah, I always thought that, because I think it would have been a slightly different story if we wouldn't have gone and beat Fulham a couple of weeks ago, got a point at Arsenal on Sunday, and if you didn't go and beat Spurs and pick up points before then, because I think both sides now have a buffer between them and that red line there. So that's the difference. When we looked at this game maybe in February and went, oh, flipping out Bournemouth away, and then we've got, I think we've got Liverpool on the Wednesday, which anything can happen there. But we were looking at it and going, Bournemouth, it's a difficult game to go away from home, and you've shown a bit of belief, which I don't think's been there from a couple of the sides down there. I think what I've seen is some belief at times, some attacking mentality to go into it as well, and that's why I think at home that you can be dangerous in that sense.
Yeah, I agree with that, mate. I think it's one of them that, because we've got that little buffer now, I think both teams might play a little bit more cagey, rather than thinking, well, we're just gonna have to go for it. Yeah. Because hoping obviously teams around us don't have a good weekend, and there's quite some tough fixtures for them. And yeah, equally, like, we got a few surprise results, first back-to-back wins, Leicester away and Tottenham away. But we were kind of looking at your fixtures again. They won't win at Fulham, and then they're not going to get anything against Arsenal. And obviously, you got 4 points. So similar enough. Yeah, similar in that sense. But we had a similar thing with Fulham actually, where we played them a few weeks ago, and they're on the beach a little bit,
Yeah.
which I was really surprised. Everton, just flopped against them last week, which was
Mm.
handy for both of us. But yeah, I think we both probably played Fulham at a decent time. No Mitrovic, and that helps give us both a little bounce. It will just be, I think, a lot of it will come to play with the Europe thing.
Mm.
You can look at it both ways. It can either be they've just had a great night in Europe, they've scored a few goals, they come from behind. That'll get a good bit of momentum for them and kick them on, bit of adrenaline going into the Bournemouth game, or they'll be fatigued and it'll be tough for them. So it all depends how you lot show up, because I know the record's not brilliant after Europe, but equally you go, but they went to Belgium last week and then just went and drew at the top of the league. So yeah, I think that'll play a big part, mate. And we just got to stop some of your key players. I think, Jared Bowen getting in behind, Declan Rice controlling the midfield. We just got to be aware of them sort of things. And I don't know what you think, maybe it's who's going to lead the line for you as well. You've got a few options. Be interested to see, because Danny Ings is former Bournemouth lad.
Yeah.
We like him here. And he's come to us a few times at different clubs and scored. He's got decent records. So we're a bit worried that if he plays against us, he'll get that goal against his old club. So I hope that you don't go with Ings just because of that, really.
In terms of that sense, well, we saw Antonio lead the line last night, which would probably mean it'll be Ings, but I do hope it's Antonio, because Antonio's just hit a bit of form, and the way, and if Ings does play, he'll play Ings up front in his own, which basically means if you put a big centre half on him, it'll be done. He won't do anything. Nobody will get anywhere near 30 yards of him, and it'll just be incredibly isolated. If Antonio plays, I'll be going into it a lot more positively. Yes, I know he played last night, but he's got that pace. He gave Holding and Gabriel the runaround last weekend. He's just getting back to his best, and that's where I think that's one of our biggest sort of biggest sort of opportunities to try and break you down. If we get the ball to Antonio's feet and running at your centre halves, that's where the danger is. If I'm being honest with you, Ings will start now and he'll play amazing. He'll score a brace, but I wouldn't be as fearful with Ings there with Antonio. But that's my opinion. Not many people agree with me about Antonio in the fan base, but I think he's a more effective sort of weapon than Ings in the way we play, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of get that. And I think our centre halves, they're doing well at the moment, whatever to play, but none of them are blessed with pace. Kelly's been playing left back, so it'll be either Mepham and Stevens or Senesi will be in there. They're all good centre halves, but they like someone that will just stand there and be up with them, and they can win headers. And yeah, exactly. But if you've got someone running that, and they probably struggle a little bit more, because weirdly they cope with Kane. Like Kane didn't do anything against us. They just don't like people running behind. So I'd probably, if Moyes has looked at that, I'd probably agree with you, mate. I think it's probably more of a game. Antonio can do an hour, get him running around, and then if you need a goal, Ings can poach a little bit more. I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong. Is Aguerd, is he going to be fit, the centre half?
Yeah. So he played last night. There was a few question marks over him because he picked up some sort of injury. I think he was out for the Arsenal game, and then he came back in last night. He's a funny player because he's put in some absolute blinders, and you think he's a Rolls Royce, but then he's had a couple of funny moments as well in games. So he doesn't have my full trust, but if we're going to start our, starting two centre halves, I'd expect it to be Zuma and Aguerd there, because those two are just starting to, form a little bit of a partnership there. And I'd expect it to be Aguerd unless he sort of picks up another niggly injury, which would put Ogbonna there. But if you've got a striker there that's going to try and get him behind, that's when problems going to be caused. Because even last night, a couple of times in the first half, when Ghent were sort of going at us a bit, their striker was getting in behind, beating us for pace and really going at us, and that's where we do fail. Zuma will win everything in that air, and Aguero's not too far behind, but sometimes they do fall a little bit short when players try and get in behind. We got caught against Newcastle sleeping, so we have been a little bit shaky defensively as of late.
Yeah, well, I was hoping. I forgot about Ogbonna actually until you mentioned him, because I was hoping Aguerd wouldn't be fit and you play Kerr, because every time I've watched him, I haven't thought much of him. So that was my hope. I was hoping, he might have to play, because, like I said, I don't watch him as much as you, obviously, but just from what I've seen, I haven't been convinced by him. So I was hoping he might have to play, but obviously it sounds like he won't have to, which will, it was a shame for us, because I was thinking he could struggle a little bit. But yeah, Aguerd I've been more impressed by than Kerr anyway.
Yeah, Kerr is a funny one because the most of the fan base, and definitely me echo what you say there about Kera. But the last couple of games, you give him credit, he has stepped up a little bit. So whether you read into any of that, I'm still not a huge fan of him, but if he keeps putting in the performances, and obviously you've got to back him in the way he does that. I think it's a really, difficult game to predict going into it, because we don't know what we're going to do after Europe. You mentioned it earlier, last year, the big moment was, we sort of dropped off from possibly getting that sixth last year and getting back into the Europa League was because we were falling short after a Thursday night European game. But then this season we've been better. The fatigue hasn't been there. And on Sunday we put in one of our best performances of the season after an away match in Europe on the Thursday. So it doesn't really make too much sense, but that could play a factor in there. I'm not sure, especially if you try and get at us early, because we don't score goals early. That's just not what we've done. If you try and get at us early, you can cause us problems.
Yeah, I've seen that you've struggled early on, and to be fair, lately we've been getting that first goal, which has been crucial. I mean, we went behind against Tottenham and obviously showed a bit of character, but before that, I think the Leicester game was like a nervy one because of how they're doing away from home. We got that first goal, and when we get our noses in front, we can be quite tough to break down. So yeah, I think the first goal will be key. But yeah, as you say, mate, I think whatever is happening at the moment at West Ham, the players are certainly still grafting in there. You saw that last night, going a goal behind. It could have got really bad in there, to be honest, with things at the moment, and they just dug in. And I thought, and the same against Arsenal, 2-0 down. It looked like it could be any scoreline at one point, and they dug in again. So you got some characters in there that I think will help you. And yeah, I do think it's going to be really, really tight. As I say, my fear is always Ingsy coming off the bench or something against Sol Club. We got loads of ex-West Ham, but none of them are in the squad. I think
Yeah, I know.
we got Randolph, who's just training. We don't know why we
What's
started
happened there? Because he's sort of gone, and that's been it, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I think what it was is we had Travers as our number 2 and Neto's our number 1. But Neto had a few knocks around kind of after the World Cup. And we were concerned that if he got an injury, we'd have Travers, who's a young goalie, and then we'd have to get an academy goalkeeper. So I think it was just a case of just getting someone experienced for training. If there is a problem, he can come into the squad, because he hasn't even been on the bench. And then Stanislas, as you guys know, is always injured. I think since he started a new 2-year deal, he's started 2 games, and that's a real shame for him. And then Ryan Fredericks, who he got off you, has been a backup player anyway. He's been okay when he's come in, but he's just keeps getting injured. And he's kind of a decent understudy, I guess, which I know he was similar with you guys. So none of them will be available anyway, mate. But yeah, as I keep saying, I do think it'll be tight. I mean, I'm hoping we'll have an edge, but I do think it's going to be a really edgy one. And yeah, maybe a goal either way, or it'll just be both teams will cancel each other out for a draw.
Yeah. If you were to give me one key player for Bournemouth, who would you go for?
I think at the moment I'll go with Phil Billen, just because at the moment. Yeah, he's our top goal scorer from midfield. Because Solanke, we all love Solanke, but he's not going to get you 15, 20 goals. Not that sort of striker. He drops deep, and when you have that, you need a midfielder who can pitch in, and that's what Billing does. Gets close to Dom, runs from deep. He's quite a clever player. Obviously, he's big in stature, but he's very technical, and he's got a lot of crucial goals for us of late. So yeah, I think he's one to watch for sure. We've got a few pacey players up there now. You saw obviously Ouattara come off the bench against Tottenham, and Tavernier's back, so we've got a few. We've got pace on in offensive areas, which will help us. But yeah, I think Billing's the one to watch from your perspective. We've done it on our preview. I kind of was asked the same question about West Ham, and I'm always fearful of Bowen just because I think he's a good finisher and obviously got a bit of pace in there. But I'm also a little bit wary of Paqueta as well, just because of the quality he has.
Yeah, Paqueta's a funny one because he hasn't really done too much, and then as of late, last couple of games, and last night I thought he came into his element. He started to bring the flicks out and the tricks, and he started to enjoy himself. He got a goal from the penalty, which will help him as well. So yeah, we're a funny side because you never know what sort of each player is going to turn up. No wonder the team. So yeah. It's a difficult one to try and predict. But talking of predictions, let's have your prediction and what you're going to go for.
It wouldn't shock me if it's a draw, but I've got to stay positive. I've got from a Bournemouth perspective, so I'm going to say we're going to nick it 2-1. I do think, as I say, it's going to be tight. I'm hoping we'll get an early goal, maybe catch on the break, and then you'll make it a little bit nervy for us at the end. But I like to think, just because we're at home, I think if you're the home side, you've got to be going for the 3 points. So I'm hoping we'll have a little bit too much, and you'll be a little bit fatigued from Thursday, hopefully.
Yeah, well, let's see. To be fair, that could possibly happen. I like to give two predictions because, you know, you quite never know. I think there's goals in this game. There always is, especially down at your place, Callum Wilson. And I'll go for a 2-2 and a 2-1 West Ham. I'm a bit nervous for it, to be honest, because Bournemouth are a side that they can turn up, and I do think you can beat us, but can our sort of quality come out, and can we get those players doing almost what we did last night and be a bit more comfortable with it? I'm not so sure. It's always difficult to try and see what sort of West Ham side to come out, and it's difficult how Moyes sets the tone with the lineup as well. So yeah, it's always difficult to say. I'm going to go positive with a 2-1 win, so I'm going to mirror yours, but the other way round. And yeah, I do hope you stay up. Of course, it's not at our cost, but yeah, thank you very much, Tom, for joining me.
No worries, mate. And same to you. I want West Ham to stay up for sure. Let's get Southampton gone. Let's get Leeds gone. Let's get Forest gone. Yeah, I want I'd like us both to stay up, mate. But for this weekend, hopefully we get one over on you anyway. You had one at your place. Cheers, mate. Anyway.
True. Thanks for watching. Drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll see you soon right here on West Ham Official. Thank you very much, guys.